And we're back. I was gone for so long. We're finally back. It took forever. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the Cleave to Antiquity stream extravaganza today. I'm going to have Father Tom Soroka joining me from Ancient Faith. He's going to be logging into the show in just a little bit. He had to handle some things at the church, but he's going to be joining me in just a second. We're going to be reviewing a video that is basically these Eastern Catholic priests that are upset people are leaving the Eastern Catholic Church for Orthodoxy. And this is happening so much, they make an entire video trying to convince people not to do this. So let me go ahead and I'll pull up that video real quick. This is Becoming Byzantine. That's their channel name. Becoming Byzantine. Oh, it's got a bunch of numbers, dude. This is a crazy channel name. Becoming. Hold on, I'm sorry. Becoming Byzantine. There you go. And this was Leaving for Orthodoxy. Here you go. So this is the video here. Leaving for Orthodoxy. Question mark? Are you leaving for Orthodoxy? So this is a bunch of Eastern Catholic priests, and they're making a case that, hey, you don't gotta go to the one true church. We got Orthodoxy at home, or the Orthodoxy at home as the uniates. But they're going through some real struggles right now, and they are losing people left and right. There's a mass exodus. Not a lot of people are talking about that the Eastern Catholic churches are facing. A lot of them are becoming Orthodox. They just lost one of their most prominent priests and scholars to the Orthodox Church. I was trying to set up a interview with him, and he said he would do it after Pascha. So I'll have to follow up with him, but I might actually get him on the show, who was a prominent Eastern Catholic priest that left for the Orthodox Church. I would really like to interview that guy and talk to him about his journey, because I think that's going to be helpful. Another thing that I want to do soon is hold on one moment. There you go. Another thing I want to do soon is I want to do another documentary style video where I just ask the former Roman Catholics that are entering into the Orthodox Church why. I don't know if you saw my Journey to the Ark video, which it was a bunch of former Protestants talking about why they entered into the Orthodox Church or became catechumens, or, are journeying into the Orthodox Church. I call it Journey to the Ark. I'd like to do the same thing, but with former Roman Catholic testimonies. I think that would be interesting. Let me know what you think about that. That concept there. But this will be very interesting. I think a lot of them are going to be up for a very rude awakening, because something that a lot of people aren't discussing right now is this new canon law change that is coming down the pipeline for the Roman Catholic Church. And this is actually going to impact the Eastern Catholics. Okay. The Eastern Catholics are going to be impacted. Let me see if I can find this real quick. There you go. All right, I'm going to pull this up. So this is Vatican News here. The Synod establishes new commission dedicated to Eastern churches. So the Vatican has implemented a new commission dedicated to the Eastern churches and changing their code of canon law. The only thing that is protected, the Byzantines, not the actual Byzantines, but the Byzantine Rite Roman Catholics, the Eastern Catholics, the only thing that's protected these uniates so far has been the fact that they have a unique system of canon law. That's no longer going to be protecting them anymore, because they're updating it to be more in line with the synodal model of the church. Okay. If you're familiar with what this Synod on Synodality has produced so far, take a look at any of the Catholic news segments where I talk about the German Catholic Church and the craziness that's going on over there. It's absolute clown world, absolute insanity. You've got Jesus goo monster mass, whale mass, crucified frog mass, Fill in the blank. It's absolute insanity. Carnival mass, whatever you want. Harry Potter mass. This is what the synodal vision looks like in practice. Uniates, this is coming for you. Synod establishes new commission dedicated to Eastern churches. The General Secretariat of the Synod creates a new commission tasked with developing ideas for the revision of the Code of Canons of the Eastern churches in light of the synodal journey. Notice in one of my previous Catholic news segments, what I said was, I posted this screenshot or article or something from the Vatican website, okay, from the actual official synodality source that said Catholicism is, or synodality is ecumenism. that was their slogan. Synodality is ecumenism. And then they said there is no synodality without ecumenism. Let me see if I can find that, because that was insane. Oh, I think I posted that to my Instagram too. So I'm sure I could actually just pull that up real quick. Yeah, synodality is ecumenism. This was the official Vatican statement. And it's got the Lady Archbishop of Canterbury picture there. Hold on, let me see if I find it real quick. Posts. Okay, hold on. Where is this thing at? Oh, I'm blind. Okay, here you go. So here you go. This is the poster. There can be no synodality without ecumenism, and there is no ecumenism without synodality. This is their statement. This is absolutely wild. This is what the Roman Catholic Church is doing. And who are they using as the model, the ideal model of ecumenism? The woman Archbishop of Canterbury. This is a synodal church. Eastern Catholics. Uh-oh. They're revising your code of canons in light of the synodal journey. Synodality is impossible without ecumenism. Watch out. This is what's coming for you, buddy. Not good at all. Not good at all. Not good for them. Really good for the Orthodox Church, because a lot of people are going to be fleeing even more. It's going to open up the floodgates. This is an absolute crazy situation that they're in right now. The Synod on Synodality has been an absolute nightmare for the post-Vatican II sect, as Vatican Catholic says. Saint Malachy. Pope Francis will be the last anti-pope. Saint Malachy predicted that after Pope Francis's death, a giant meteor will crash into the Vatican, thus ending the reign of the Vatican II sect. This was like an actual video Michael Diamond put out. Saint Malachy predicted the last anti-pope would be Pope Francis. There could be no synodality without ecumenism. So, I mean, this is the model of the church going forward. This is going to be absolutely a train wreck. Vatican News, the General Secretariat of the Synod has created a new body dedicated to developing proposals for the revision of the Code of Canons of the Eastern churches in the context of the synodal journey. So they already tell you what changes they want to make. They're going to try to make this more ecumenist. So all of the interreligious dialogue stuff that drives the papist insane, well, prepare for a lot more of that. You're not going to be safe from this in the Eastern Catholic churches anymore. Your safe haven is busted up. Called the Eastern Canonical Commission. It met for the first time on February 20th at the General Secretariat of the Synod's headquarters. A dedicated commission. This new commission builds on the work of the Canonical Commission that had been formed in December 2023. That commission had already put some proposals forward for a reform of the CCEO, though its main focus was on the Latin Church's canon law. They said, you know who else we can fix up? The Uniates. They need a little sprucing up. They're a little too individualistic right now. Because you notice, remember what they did with the TLM? They persecuted the traditional Latin Mass out into the boonies. We've seen this several times. Nick Cavazos, in his video he posted and later deleted based off of pressure from other Roman Catholics, literally said, we were pushed out into the boonies. I was attending a TLM church in a cathedral. They pushed me to a parish. Then they removed us from the parish. They pushed us to a fellowship hall. Now we've been worshiping in a fellowship hall for 3 years. And this is the case for almost everyone in the traditional Latin Mass community. All the traditional Catholics, they're worshiping in these tiny little parishes on the outskirts of town now, filled to the brim compared to a Novus Ordo. But This is what's going on. They're corralling them, okay? Because they're a little too individualistic, what they would like to do is elevate the Novus Ordo. This is going to be the main mass. Anyway, the new commission builds on the work of the Canonical Commission, so on and so forth. Okay. 2026 Eastern Canonical Commission is also responding to a number of requests made by leaders of the 24 individual autonomous churches within the Catholic Church that are in full communion with the Pope but maintain their own specific traditions. So it's focusing all of these autonomous churches as well. We've seen this before. They're a little too individualistic. We need to sync them up with the synodal journey. We can't have all these traditional types out here. Okay. But they maintain their own specific traditions, liturgies, laws, and governance. Oh, this is going to be changing. The laws are going to be more in sync with what you're seeing with the greater Novus Ordo Church. Aimed at fostering interdicasteral cooperation to serve the local churches, the new commission is made up of Eastern canon law experts who have been chosen from consultants of the Dicastery for Legislative Texts and the Dicastery for the Eastern Churches. Cardinal Mario Grech, General Secretary of the Synod, explained that it was deemed appropriate to establish a dedicated commission that could work in close connection with study group number 1 on certain aspects of the relations between the Eastern Catholic churches and the Latin Church, while taking into account the specificity of Eastern canon law. So not to offend their sensibilities too much, because then what are they going to do? They're just going to leave, right? But they're still changing it. Study group is one of the 10 established by Pope Francis in 2024, following the first session of the Ordinary General Assembly of the Synod of Bishops. During that assembly, a number of important topics regarding the life and mission of the church in a synodal context emerged. In the spirit of synodality that characterizes this implementation phase, Cardinal Grech invites the autonomous churches, Episcopal conferences, Catholic universities, institutions, whatever, to this thing. Okay. In the short term, this new commission is tasked with preparing draft text. So this is the very beginning of this process, so on and so forth. And they are going to update Eastern canon law. So the Eastern Catholics, your safe haven, is going bye-bye. So what does this mean for the Uniates? What does this actually mean for the Uniates? Because right now, what we see in the Uniate churches, we see a lot of the bigger apologists and these things, these type of things, hiding in these churches as refuge. Okay. Everything's going insane. Everything is burning to the ground everywhere else. What are we really going to see? What are we really going to see in the Uniate churches from here on out? Well, if you just take a look at every other Roman Catholic jurisdiction that has applied these canonical changes, okay, this is what you'll see. Well, first off, the ecumenism thing. But let's take a look at another statement that these investigative groups, these commissions, study groups, and such. Let's see what other unique insights they have come up with. Okay. What other unique insights these groups have come up with? Well, let's take a look at LifeSite News.
Hey, my friends, there's bombshell news coming out of the Leo XIV Vatican. The Pope, who came in saying that we must be a synodal church on the very day of his election to the papacy, Leo XIV said, and I quote, "We want to be a synodal church." And during the homily at the Mass, concluding the Jubilee of synodal teams and participatory bodies on October the 26th, 2025, in St. Peter's Basilica said, and I quote, "Let us commit ourselves to building a church that is entirely synodal." Well, we now know what that means. A report from the Vatican's General Secretary of the Synod, published today, Tuesday, May 5th, 2026, suggests a reframing of homosexuality in the church, endorsing testimony without qualification that sin, and I quote, "sin at its root does not consist in the same-sex couple relationship. It consists in," and I quote, "a lack of faith in a God who desires our fulfillment," end quote. So the Vatican Commission Study Group 9 of the Synod on Synodality published its final report today, May 5th. It's called Theological criteria and synodal methodologies for shared discernment of emerging doctrinal, pastoral, and ethical issues, end quote, whatever that means. Under the heading, Taking a Synodal Approach to Discernment, a proposal for implementation in local churches, the 32-page document relies on the testimonies of the, and I quote, lived experience, end quote, of two individuals with same-sex attraction to, and I quote, aid the promotion of pastoral discernment, end quote. So it frames the two testimonies as, and I quote again, experiences of goodness, end quote, which constitute, says the document, and I quote, successive stages of development in the individuals involved, end quote.
Okay, so notice this. This is one of these study groups regarding synodality that is looking into this particular subject here. Vatican Synod report suggests that Skittles relationships may not be sinful. It's talking about synodality push in the Vatican, talking about the synodality push, wanting to make this all copacetic across every jurisdiction within the Roman Catholic Church. This is one of the results of these study groups. They're opening up a new one to investigate canon law changes in the Eastern Catholic churches, but just look at the havoc that has been raised with these study groups just recently, right here. This is the kind of findings that they're coming up with. Skittle relationships may not be sinful. This is what's going on here, according to LifeSite News.
The document notes that the protagonist of the first testimony's discovery that sin, this is again from the document, the discovery that sin at its root does not consist in the same-sex couple relationship. And it goes on to say,
okay, so this is the last part I'm going to play of this clip here. But this was the finding of this study group. Notice this is a study group focused on the synod on synodality. Okay, so this is the synodality push. I just read to you the article stating that the uniates, okay, I'm going to pull this up again because I want you to see this. This is the danger here. The General Secretariat on the Synod creates a new commission tasked with developing ideas for the revision of the Code of Canons of the Eastern Churches in light of the synodal journey. So this is to make them more in line with the synodal church. What have these study groups already come up with recently? This was just a week ago, I believe, maybe 2 weeks ago. Sin at its root does not consist in the same-sex couple relationships, but just in their lack of faith in God. So how do you read this? Well, according to LifeSite News, they say this actually questions this here, that these relationships may not be sinful in and of themselves, which is a crazy statement to make. So these canon law research groups have actually caused a lot of damage, a lot of confusion. I don't want to speculate on it any further than that, but I'm just saying this is very, very concerning since they're now coming for the Eastern Catholic churches with a similar study group. But I have a special guest in the backstage of the video here. I'm going to pull him up here. We've got none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Father Tom Soroka. What's going on? Welcome,
hey,
Father.
How you doing, Ben? Christ is risen.
Truly, he is risen. I'm excited for this one. So we have a video that we're going to review here. This is the Byzantine Unscripted Episode 3, Leaving for Orthodoxy. I was just discussing the canon law changes we were talking about and how that might be concerning for some people. But this one I think is going to be interesting because this is some Eastern Catholic clergy that are experiencing some significant losses from their church into ours. So what are your thoughts on this, Father?
Yeah, full disclosure, half my family, like on my mother's side, was Byzantine Catholic or is Byzantine Catholic. There's not many of them left. My mom, when she was growing up, she was Byzantine Catholic, but of course, when she married my dad, she became Orthodox. He was a priest. And so I have this kind of affinity. I have a love for Byzantine Catholics, but truth be told, when you look at them, I feel sorry for them because they hang their hat on one thing, and that is to be what, as they say, like to be in communion with the See of Peter. And they have given up so much that when people, let's say they join the Roman Catholic Church, and this happened, I have 2 families in my church. They joined the Roman Catholic Church, very disappointed. They went into a trad community. It was pretty bad. So they went into the Byzantine Catholic Church, and what happened was they felt like something was wrong because the Byzantine Catholic priests would say, well, just read these Orthodox books, right? So they would read the Orthodox books, and it wasn't jiving with what they were seeing in their community, either with the liturgy, and they were keeping one eye on Orthodox churches. And so what happens is they end up visiting a church, and this is the exact thing that happened was one of these couples said that it is so different. Like they walked into the liturgy, and granted, like we use the same words and so forth, but they said the spirit of it was completely different because they felt like, and forgive me, but they felt like the Byzantine Catholics were kind of LARPing to be Orthodox, but the history of it is very tragic because they had to give up and continue to give up so much because they say, oh, well, you know, they promised us we'd keep all our traditions. And then the reality is, oh, well, you can keep all your traditions, but your priest can't get married in the United States. And they didn't lift that ban until 2014. It's crazy. And, you know, I mean, I'm probably going to say things that are going to get me in some trouble, but it kind of feels like, you know, when somebody, like when you're counseling a woman or whatever, and they're, you know, being abused by someone, but somehow they keep going back and back.
Yep.
That's kind of what it feels like sometimes because they say, well, maybe Rome will be different this time. You know, maybe they'll act differently this time. Maybe they'll let us be ourselves. But the reality is there will always be something because Rome is going to Rome, right? They're going to do the Rome thing. They are going to control exactly what they want to control, and nobody's going to tell them any different. So, like you said, they pick all the bishops. Well, that's not an Eastern practice, but every bishop has to go through Rome. Every single bishop has to be approved by Rome. Or when they lifted the ban for ordaining married men, and it was only in certain Eastern Catholic churches, by the way. I think it was in the Byzantine Catholic Church, maybe the Ukrainian Catholic Church. They said, you can ordain a man, but you must notify the Latin ordinary of your area first and tell them that you're going to ordain a married man before you do this. Well, what does that say? Even if you're not asking his permission, you're basically saying Rome is calling the shots. And I just don't see how it can survive. And their numbers are plummeting. There was an article that was published by a very trad magazine online, and they got blasted because basically it talked about the dying Eastern Catholic churches in the United States. And then they had to kind of retract it. So I think, you know, what we're doing is just presenting Orthodoxy as it has always been. And no matter what they say, and no matter how much they say, well, you know, we have to be the church of the first 1,000 years. Well, you're not that because Vatican I. You're never going to be that until they walk everything back, and good luck with that. They're never going to walk all that stuff back. So I don't know how, honestly, and when you talk, depends on the church, but when you talk with Eastern Catholics, if you talk with them privately, especially like the the Melkites, right? That's like the Antiochian Eastern Catholics. They're very traditional, and they will say all the right things in front of Roman Catholics, but behind the scenes, when they're being honest, they'll tell you, yeah, we don't really accept any of this.
Mm. That is kind of what it seems like to me, because you have they have their own codes of canon law. They don't have to recite the Filioque. They venerate Gregory Palamas. A lot of the Uniates. Even if you were to look at, like, say, the Nestorian Uniates, the Syro-Malabar Uniates. Not even talking about Eastern Catholics, but with these various Uniate groups, their practices are so diverse. The Syro-Malabar Uniates literally have an aphora to Mar Nestorius. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, no, it's hilarious. Like, they have Coptic Catholics, and so they're allowed to venerate whoever their saints are. Dioscorus, I don't know who they're venerating, but how do you do that? How do you reconcile in one church where you have the Romans saying, oh, Gregory Palamas, he's wrong, Barlaam was right, and so forth, and then in the same breath you have the Eastern Catholics somehow lauding St. Gregory Palamas? So it's a hot mess, and I think the problem is they have gone too far. You know, after 1,000 years, you basically have to say, look, it would be nice if we would have unity, but if you're not willing to renounce all of these things. And by the way, I don't know if you've ever seen, but Father Thomas Hopko, he wrote a beautiful article about what would it take for the Orthodox to have unity with Rome. And he put it all on Rome, and he listed every little thing, all of it. And of course, you know, the best that they can do is the Zogby Initiative, which is a joke. Nobody accepts it. The Zogby Initiative just says, well, we're a bridge, right? We are in union with the Pope, but we are Orthodox. But that's not real. It's just not real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does seem like it is this. I think a lot of times, especially with people who, one thing that I encounter, because I encounter a lot of converts or former Protestants and things like this. I think sometimes they have this idealized version of the Roman Catholic Church that they see online, but then in person, it's something completely different. I was discussing this. There was a video. We'll get into the reaction in just a moment, but I do want to address this real quick because I think it's important. There was a video that was taken down by Nick Cavazos, pretty prominent traditional Roman Catholic gentleman. And he was describing the actual life compared to what is sold to them online. And it's very tragic. In the traditional Latin mass community, for him, this is just getting persecuted. I mean, pushed off into the outskirts. It was originally in a cathedral. They pushed it out into a parish. Then after a couple of years, they pushed it out into a fellowship hall. Now they just have to gather in like a lunchroom, and they're doing their services in a lunchroom. So it's a lot different. Oh, sorry.
And even no. I was just going to say, even with the Eastern Catholics, okay, yeah, they have their established communities, right? But think that through for a second. If you have an Eastern Catholic church next to a Roman Catholic church, do you think that Roman Catholic church is going to encourage someone to go to the Eastern Catholic Church? It's not going to happen. In Pittsburgh, where I live, they've closed dozens of Roman Catholic churches, and the Eastern Catholic churches are really small. So they are all vying for a smaller and smaller group of people. And whatever, I know, like some of the podcasters, some of the YouTubers, the so-called Roman Catholic apologists, they're going to the Eastern Catholic churches. But they're very marginal, because if you notice, they never really express an Orthodox point of view. They'll always take the Roman Catholic point of view, and then they'll say, well, yeah, in the East they do it like this, but the Pope this, the Pope that. So they, it's one of these matters where the Eastern Catholics in 2026 are relegated, no matter how much Rome says, oh, we laud the ancient traditions of the Eastern churches. And you notice right away, Eastern churches, they have always said that the Eastern churches are a particular rite for a particular geography, a particular people, right?
Mhm.
And they never thought that those people would somehow, quote unquote, encroach on Western lands,
Mhm.
right? But what do you do when you have the immigration to the United States at the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century? You have St. Alexis Toth going into the office of Bishop John Ireland and saying, hey, I'm an Eastern Catholic priest and I'm married. I think he was a widower at that time. And Ireland is like, get out of here. We don't want you. And he was so powerful, he got Rome to send a letter to all the Catholics in the United States saying, you may not have any married priests in the United States.
Mm.
And that was not lifted until 2014. Now, they started to kind of force the issue, but the Roman Catholics don't know what to make of it. They will always relegate the Eastern Catholics to our kind of colorful, redheaded step cousins that, they have a different mass than us. But they provide the diversity and they provide all of the different rites. But first of all, obviously, it's a very small part of the Catholic Church. But the other thing is, when they are evangelizing, when they are going out and missionizing, starting missions, let's say they start a mission in Africa, or they start a mission, by the way, in the 18th and 19th century, there were already Eastern Catholics, right? In the 18th and 19th century. When the Roman Catholics went into the Middle East and they were starting missions, did they start Eastern Catholic churches? No, they started Roman Catholic churches. So the whole thing is, a tragedy from the standpoint of the Eastern Catholics, but the Eastern Catholic priests and the people have to understand that the handwriting is on the wall.
Mhm.
And I think that our Orthodox bishops, and I'm actually going to talk to some of our bishops about this, I really believe the time is for us to quietly go to some of these Eastern Catholic bishops, Byzantine Catholic bishop, the Ukrainian Catholic bishop, and say, hey, come back. You're being mistreated. Now is the time.
Yeah.
Let's band together. You are not going to thrive in that world. You are always going to be marginalized. Come back to us. And I think you might be surprised. I think you might see, and if you make it a public thing, even if the priests don't come or the parishes don't come, I bet you a lot of the people would come. I really
Yes.
do.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good way to look at it. And I agree with you. I do think we're in a very unique, we're in a really unique time frame, especially with these new synod commissions that they're pushing, this synodality push within the Eastern Catholic churches. When we start to see some of these changes take place, they're going to get really uncomfortable. And I think we might see some feet start to shuffle a bit.
Yeah, they'll say all the right
go ahead.
things. They'll say, oh, well, you have to keep all of your practices and you'll have to keep all of your particular Eastern ways. But when push comes to shove, the Pope, it's already been demonstrated to you, Catholics. If he says, you don't have your Latin Mass anymore, then you don't have it. By the way, Peter, and forgive me, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Kozniewski, who is like the big trad online that really promotes the Latin Mass, right? He wrote a little bit of it was like a funny fake report, basically saying that the papal commission was forcing the Eastern Catholics to revise St. John Chrysostom liturgy. And he was talking about all the different changes that they had to make. Now, it was tongue in cheek, but the reality is he was making a point. He was saying, hey, Latin Catholics, if he can do it to you, he can do it to the Eastern Catholics too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, so I want to dive into this video, but before I do so, let me address some of these super chats. I really appreciate y'all supporting the show. Joshua Tree says Latinization in Eastern Catholicism was going to happen eventually. Matthew 6:24 makes it clear you can't serve two masters. Interesting point. Any thoughts on that?
This is always been the problem with Roman Catholicism. It always is. Who is the head of the church? Mm-hmm. And when you look at just the Roman Catholic ethos of what is most important to them, what's most important to them, and they deny when we say something like, well, when Christ says, upon this rock I will build my church, well, this is talking about the faith of Peter, right? And they say, no, it's the seat of Peter, it's Rome. Well, first of all, Rome in the scriptures is what? Rome is the center of everything that is wicked and horrible and going to be destroyed by God in the end. Number two, when in church history, for instance, when the Tome of Leo was read, right? Affirming Chalcedon, what did people cry? Did they cry that the seat of Peter has spoken? No, they said, Peter has spoken. In other words, Peter has affirmed the faith that he expressed to Christ, that is the rock of the church. This is a nuance that we have to push back when the Roman Catholics are saying, no, this is about Peter, this is about Peter, this is about Peter. It is about his faith. And again, what Orthodox bishops, what the patriarchs, what the other four in the Pentarchy were always affirming about Rome was they were the center of unity in the faith. They were the ones who were going to hold steadfastly to the faith. It has nothing to do with a city. It has to do with the faith of Peter. And when the seat of Peter doesn't hold that faith anymore, then you got to dump him. So this is, to me, this is very, very important that we make this distinction and remind Roman Catholics this is about the faith of Peter.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm over here with my my Diet Dr. Sam's cola. I got the poor man soda here, but it's keeping me active and energized. So thank you Walmart off brands for fueling me.
You've been on all day long, so God bless you.
Well, it's been fun though. That whole David Woods situation is wild, but pray for them, y'all.
I'm very disappointed. I honestly am. I remember being very excited when AP was embracing Orthodoxy, and then it just seemed to somehow devolve into his politics about Israel, and now David Wood, which I don't think he's ever been a fan of Orthodoxy, but I think he played along with AP, but now he's going after them. He's going after us, and it's not going to go well. It's not going to go well.
Well, it'll be good for us, because then they'll see. I don't know if you saw Kelly Powers going on their show. He was like, they split because of the Filowiki.
Yeah, he said that he said something about the procession of the sun, and I thought, ugh.
Yeah. He said, and the son proceeding from the father.
It's very sad.
Lord of mercy. Okay. How long before the Vatican finally goes, no more Eastern Rite, no more TLM, get on board with the Novus Order or get out? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, I don't know if that would ever happen. I mean, they know that the union between the quote unquote Eastern churches and Rome has always been tenuous, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not sure that they're going to do anything to make them just give up their Eastern Rite. There's a lot invested in that. When you look at some of the nationalities, when you look at the Rusin people, right? The Carpatho-Russian people, they love their Byzantine rite and their prostopenia singing and so forth. And in those Eastern Catholic churches, that's really, they identify that with their culture. So I don't think that's going to go very well. I don't think, I just don't think Rome is going to do something like that. Plus, I think the first speech that Pope Leo gave was somehow lauding or welcoming the Eastern churches. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if he was basically saying we have to do better. I can't imagine that he cares, but we'll see. We'll see what this revision of the Eastern Catholic Code of Canon Law is. I listened or I read a couple of articles about it, and the Eastern Catholics want to affirm more their autonomy under Rome. But to me, that's an oxymoron, right?
Right.
It's an oxymoron to say that you are autonomous under Rome. Under Rome is about being under power. It has always been about power. When Rome, or I should say, when Byzantium reached out to Rome that to get military help, because you could see the end of the empire coming a couple hundred years before it did end. You have this Council of Lyon, and in the council, I think it's the Second Council of Lyon, it was all hinging on the military aid that Rome could give to Byzantium. And ultimately, everything is always tied. Each one of those councils that Rome asserted with various Eastern churches, it was always about economics or military power or political power. It was never merely about the faith. Never.
I absolutely agree with that. YouTuber I Miss Christendom, the man I told you about, is still coping, saying stay Catholic no matter what. I mean, God bless him, but he's like the other trads will eventually be pushed out. Yeah. Well, Taylor Marshall's talked about that a long time, that they're corralling all the trads so that they can treat them kind of like the Uniates or these other, groups. Making Pickles says, my son and I listen to Father Tom on our way to jiu-jitsu a couple of times each week. He gets us energized. God bless.
God bless you.
I know an Eastern Catholic priest who's sending his people to Eastern Orthodoxy.
Nice.
Glory to God.
That's
we
good.
need more of that.
And we just received one of those brothers, right? I don't remember his name, but we received one Eastern Catholic priest. Unfortunately, I have to be honest and say that we've had a couple, at least from the OCA, go over to the Ukrainian Catholic Church. In one of the cases, it really was because this former priest, to be honest, was deposed by the OCA, and then he ended up just being received by the Eastern Catholics anyway. So,
thank you for the $10 super chat. No comment there. If you have a question or comment, let me know and I'll bring it up on the page. Let's see. Added them all to your number, you wouldn't hit 1%. Oh, well, stay tuned. Stay tuned. Big things coming, man.
Story's not
You
over.
you might be surprised at the rapid expanse of the Orthodox Church. I mean, our church, my local parish, is almost doubled in size. I mean, it's growing pretty quick. I don't know if it's exactly double, but that's the story of a lot of different parishes, almost doubling in just a couple of years.
Yeah.
So imagine what that'll look like on next year's numbers as Pew Research and all these different places catch up with the actual statistics. You might be surprised.
Yeah, when people throw up the numbers about, oh, well, you're so small, I always remind people, when you go to Russia or Romania or Greece or, Serbia, they don't know what a Protestant is. Maybe they've heard of it. They probably never seen one. So don't think you're so special, because there are a lot of places in this world, they have no idea what you are, where Orthodoxy is the predominant faith and certainly expression of Christianity. So people only know, especially Americans, they have blinders about the rest of the world. And I think this may be a very unique time in the world where, all of the conditions are right for people who are they've been lied to, right? And they've seen the grift and they're done with it. The one thing that every single person, and we've received a lot of people over the last few years in our parish, they all say, I'm done with the fakery that I've been involved in my evangelical church, in my Pentecostal church, in my non-denominational church. They said, we want something authentic. It's every time they say we want something authentic.
All right, I got about 6 more chats here. I'm going to get through these quick so we can get into the video. Nathan Slippery, a priest near me, grew up Byzantine Catholic. He was in school, got in trouble for not knowing what the wafers were. Then the nuns found out he was Byzantine. They said, oh, one of those. Lord have mercy. That's wild. John Albinus, $10. TLM to Melkite to Orthodox here. I had the same experience of walking into an Orthodox church and I could feel it, the Holy Spirit. One note, the Melkites aren't allowed to use communion spoons. Wow.
Don't they use the they make the body like little sticks or something and they put it in? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Egg of Christ, $20. Thank you so much. Never betray the truth and fullness of orthodoxy for convenience. Very true. Ecumenism or earthly self-desiring lies. For if the church is one, we must remain in his body, and the position of the saints had lived and died for.
Amen.
Jordan to Jericho. Father bless. It
Praise
always seemed a tragedy to me, the Western traditions being fought against by the very people who should be preserving the faith. I went through the Tradcat Cope curve, and thank God I was baptized Orthodox 2024.
Glory to
God. American Capartho Russian is my diocese. I immediately fell in love with the music and never want to leave my parish. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and they have that beautiful tradition of congregational singing. It's really impressive. Really impressive. It's a good tradition.
Roasted sweet potato. I had a nice sit down with a Serbian Eastern Orthodox priest. Told me about Eastern Catholics. He told me some actually don't affirm filioque and view the EO Church as closer brother and sisters than Rome. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, again, when you talk to them privately, of course, but if they're standing in front of a Roman Catholic or they're standing in front of the Pope, they'll never say that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Ponsippy, $20. Thank you so much. Thank you for the work y'all do. My husband and I became catechumens 3 weeks ago. Glory to God. And our local parish said they have grown from 30 to 50 people a week to 60 to 80 people a week in just 3 months. Wow. Glory to God. That's beautiful.
Incredible. Yeah, it's happening everywhere.
Pray for the priests for patience. Patience with all of us who were raised on the internet and are just absolutely bonkers. Pray for their hairlines, because it's got to be stressful. Strange times. It's like all the evil these past few years has only emphasized orthodoxy, made it explode. Christos Anesti. This is a bit off topic. Are you familiar with Pigs in the Parlor by Frank Hammond? If so, what are your thoughts? I'm not familiar with that. Are
Never
you?
heard it.
Me neither, but thank you for supporting the show. All right, let's dive into the video here. So we've got this video by a channel called Becoming Byzantine, and the title of this video is Leaving for Orthodoxy. They say some very interesting stuff in this video. I'm going to play it on 1.25 because it should be listenable that way, but let's see what they have to say. I'm going to skip past the music just in case it's copyrighted. Hold on.
Yeah, the irony was this was the last one that they ever did. They haven't done one since.
So it must not have gone too well.
I don't think so.
Becoming Byzantine Unscripted, where we take a topic of note, something newsworthy, something that needs to be discussed, and we discuss it in an unscripted manner, just sharing our thoughts with our dear audiences to try to get to the truth of the matter in our own unique Byzantine fashion. So it's good to be with everyone again. Father Michael Wynn, always lovely to see you. Would you mind leading us in prayer as we begin our time together?
Sure, we'll pray the prayer, Heavenly King.
I'm going to skip forward just a little bit so we can get into their actual discussions here.
You know, put on our combat boots and talk about it and see if we can't come up with some answers. So first, I think we need to get some definitions laid out on the table. You know, obviously, I put it in a very simple way of people who are Eastern Catholic or Latin Catholic, and then they head on over to the Orthodox Church. The definition in the blogosphere in the online world is doxing. So maybe we could just talk about that a little bit. Like, where did that, where did we hear that term? Where did, it's obviously something that's, frequent enough to kind of take on its own term and definition. So I guess let's just talk about maybe our experience, maybe the first time hearing that term. What was our reaction? What did we think it meant? And what do we think it means now?
I first heard this term probably maybe over 20 years ago in the 1990s on an online forum where Eastern Catholics would congregate, and some left and became Orthodox, and people refer to this as doxing. Now, the irony is today this is a much more common term, but for something totally different. In the modern internet parlance, doxing refers to exposing somebody's personal information online so they can be harassed. So it's funny, the word is more popular than ever, but with a totally different meaning. But I do remember hearing this first in the 1990s.
So I want to comment on that because I find that really funny. It's such a frequent thing that happens that they come up with a term for it called doxing. Doxing, they're not talking about exposing people's info. They're talking about people becoming Orthodox.
Becoming Orthodox, right? That must have been like an inside thing that they were all talking to each other, right? Said, oh, he doxed, right? He went to the Orthodox Church.
Exactly.
There was among the Byzantine Catholics, like the Slavic ones, they used to say, they would say it in Slavonic, of course, or in Russian or Slovak. They would say that the Catholics were the sheep and the Orthodox were the goats, right? And it was because of their beards. Like the Orthodox always had a beard, like a goat has a beard. And that's how they used to say it in Slovak, and in Russian, they would call the Orthodox the goats.
Interesting. Because we got beards. Well, I mean.
And they would, because they believe we're going to hell because we don't believe in the Pope.
Right.
I would even know, Anthony, that it has its own secular meaning too. That's a great clarification to make right up front. Yeah, Father Michael?
I was going to say, Father Deacon Tony, I think it's the same forum that I belonged to back then. And
people in the comments are saying, hear that? The Orthos are the greatest of all time. Goats, greatest of all time. Hey, we'll take it. There you go.
Was very curious as to not only the term. I understood what the term meant back then of leaving the Catholic Church and becoming a member of the Orthodox Church. But my bigger question was why, and often the answers were not sufficient for me. That satisfied me and my desire to know what the reasons for leaving and becoming Orthodox. But I think we'll talk about that a bit later. But it's the first time about 15 to 20 years ago as well.
Father Daniel, what's been your exposure to that term?
Oh, well, relatively recently that I've heard the phrase, but yeah, I mean, it's the idea, the concept of it obviously has been around for quite a while. So in terms of the phrase itself, I've heard it more recently, but yeah, it's not. And I think I was probably on that same forum, so maybe I actually have heard it long before then. But anyway, yeah, it's just a term. It's a shorthand way of it, just sort of expressing someone who goes from usually a Catholic communion to a communion with the Orthodox churches.
Good. And yeah, thanks again, Father Deacon Anthony, for your clarification. I hadn't heard it until probably within the last year used as a term. So it's important, especially as we live on the internet, or become ill, to get clarity on what these terms mean and how other people use the term, just to make sure people know what we're talking about. I guess it's one thing that I have encountered, and I tend to not watch a whole lot online just for the sake of my own soul. But one question that kind of comes up is, what's the big deal with this? I mean, we love the Orthodox churches as Eastern Catholics. We have Orthodox friends. We have a common patrimony, common liturgical tradition. So, are we making this a problem? Father Daniel?
Well, it's a great question. Why even talk about this? I mean, if some that would say, well, there's, this is not a big deal. It's about, some would see it as returning to our patrimony. Our Eastern Catholic churches, especially, and of course, this doxing as a concept is not just exclusive to us. Roman Catholics who become Orthodox or Latin Catholics become Orthodox, they sometimes call that doxing too. I mean, I look at ourselves really as, sort of children of a great divorce, and this is not an original concept. This idea that we exist as churches with a patrimony that is Eastern, and at the same time maintaining this communion with the West, this communion with.
What are your thoughts on that, Father Tom? Because that's a big statement right there.
Yeah. So, he says, well, we're children of divorce, but the reality is, what were we missing without Rome? And this is what they have to be able to answer. And it always comes down to, well, it's the seed of Peter. But again, I really think, this is my honest opinion, and I don't know any of these priests and deacon and so forth. And I think in a way, they are struggling on this video to actually come up with reasons why they maintain their Eastern Catholicism, right? So they have to justify, and they say, well, we're like children of divorce. Well, what are children of divorce? Children of divorce, they are, unfortunately, they can be somewhat harmed by that divorce, right? They can be favored by one parent. They can be manipulated. It might affect the outcome of their life. So, even though maybe he's trying to get people to understand that they are between a rock and a hard place, right? A child of divorce, I got to please my mom, but I got to please my dad, and they hate each other. So, maybe he's speaking the truth there, but, they made their choice, and that they're surprised that they don't want to be with mom anymore. They want to be with dad, or, however you want to see that. That's a decision that they made. And I think that, and some of the live chat is saying, about the Latinizations and so forth. So absolutely. They don't really get into that here, because I think they're grasping for reasons and they're trying to, make it look like they're victims in all of this. But, the reality is this is something that is inevitable. It really is. As Orthodoxy puts its best foot forward in this country, and it matures and it grows, and the Eastern Catholic people see the difference. I've heard this many times where they wonder, and I'm in a pretty unique situation because I'm in a a place where within 3 blocks, there are 4 Eastern churches. There's our OCA church. There's a Ukrainian church, which is 1 block away. Across the street from that is a Byzantine Catholic church. And behind that is a Ukrainian Catholic church. Okay. I'm not going to talk about the Ukrainian Orthodox church, but the Byzantine Catholic church, I've been at my parish for 26 years. And our parish has gone from an average attendance of like 75 to now we're about 160, 170, 160 on a Sunday, something like that. And the Byzantine Catholic Church has gone in the opposite direction. Like they're down to 60. And it was a huge church at one time. I think it seats like 500-600 people. So, and the Ukrainian Catholic Church probably has 7 people on a Sunday. So, they can use all the metaphors that they want to try to explain their situation, but it's one that they accepted.
Yes. Yeah, that is something that you'll notice even even amongst most of the Novus Ordo churches as well. Their numbers are dwindling like crazy. Online there's a lot of posturing. Oh, we have all of these converts, we have all of these new people coming in, but when you look at the actual stats, it's like one enters, 10 leave or something along these lines. It was either 1 to 8 or 1 to 10. I forget what the exact statistic was, but it was like, I think 8 cradle Catholics leave, 1 new convert enters. And this is really what they're dealing with. So that's a massive free fall in membership. If you were to look comparatively at the Orthodox Church, we don't have the same deficit. Even according to the old stats, we don't have the same deficit. We're not losing as many people comparatively to we're gaining. I believe the old stats from 2 years ago was like the amount of people we gained was equal or just slightly above the amount that we lost. These last 2 years, these stats are going to be way, 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 way up.
And that's the thing is when you look at, if you go back 50 years, there is no doubt Orthodoxy lost a lot of people. And part of that, by the way, was due to the Roman Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church making rules. Like, for instance, if somebody married a Roman Catholic, you had to sign a document saying you're going to raise your kids Roman Catholic. And so our Orthodox people lost a lot of people just that way, because the Roman Catholic Church made you sign a document saying that you would raise your children Roman Catholic. So you lost that family. But within the last 20 years, there's no doubt we've been growing. Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely.
With the Latin West. And so the question of returning to our patrimony is an important one. And it's one that I think everyone who is in the Eastern Catholic Church has at one point in time sort of wrestled with, or at least sought to understand a little bit better. Of course, the important thing is to understand what it means by Eastern. Sometimes in exploring the East, we can inadvertently absorb certain polemical positions and views, and also understanding that, when it comes to defining the Orthodox East, very often all we're really talking about is one single strand within the wide array of Eastern traditions, the Byzantine strand. I mean, this is the one that we typically refer to. But of course, as we know, and maybe this is something we can talk about later, there's a great diversity, a whole mosaic of Eastern traditions, more than just the Byzantine tradition. But I think we feel it as a big deal because, there's pain.
Yeah, he basically just said what you just said.
They marginalize themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're the colorful cousins that you invite when you have a party, and you want them to dress up. That's their purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The token uniate Eastern groups here. That's what it seems like.
In separation. And I think there's also, and we'll get into this, I'm sure, the means by which a person doxes, I think can be of concern.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a question that springs to mind, because we've also had the experience of a Catholic leaving the Catholic Church entirely and entering some Protestant denomination. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, that hurts us probably more deeply than when someone becomes Orthodox. right? When you're leaving an apostolic tradition, whether Catholic or Orthodox, to go into a tradition that is, a baby, an infant, relatively speaking, in the scheme of history, and you're throwing out so many, you're throwing out doctrines regarding salvation, right? Whereas in the Orthodox Church, it's an apostolic church. They have real bishops, real priests, real deacons. They've got, real sacraments. So what's that difference? Between someone who leaves the Catholic Church for a Protestant denomination, how do we understand that wound that is inflicted upon us when we hear those things? How is it different?
I do want to mention this. Very often people who make this jump, I've known many Eastern Catholics over the decades who became Eastern Orthodox, they often act as if it's no big deal. I've heard it referred to as just changing management. Oh, we just changed management. No big deal. But I think it is a bigger deal than people realize for a few reasons. One of them is, in the Orthodox liturgical books, if a Catholic becomes Orthodox, they're supposed to do public renunciations of Catholicism. And I've seen the standard text. Some eparchies or Orthodox dioceses may have different versions of it, but it generally involves a list of so-called errors or heresies of Catholicism that you must renounce. Now, I've heard that some Orthodox priests don't require people to say them, but some do, and they are in the liturgical books. So renouncing Catholicism as being false or having heretical or false teachings is a pretty serious matter. You should never take that lightly. But the other part of it too.
Yes, it's very important that you renounce Roman Catholicism. That is a very serious matter. You should all do it.
And if the priests aren't doing that, shame on them. They absolutely, all of my converts, they have to. What I'm doing now, I kind of ripped this off from the Roman Catholics, but because the Roman Catholics, when you join the Roman Catholic Church, you have to sign a document. So now I make our converts sign their renunciation. So we have it all printed out. You can go on my website, you go like on our church website, and they can print out, they have to, all the renunciations, and they boom, sign it. And, notice what he's saying here. And this is, he's showing his hand. He's been on Lofton's program a lot too. He's showing his hand where it basically says, the worst thing you can do is renounce, and what he's saying is Catholicism, but what he really means is the Pope. Like if you renounce the Pope, it's over.
Yep. That's the big scary thing for them. But I feel like that really does demonstrate the root of the issues, that they've made him an idol, basically. This is not the ecclesiology of the first 1,000 years of the church. Even the Vatican will admit this. They've had study groups come out not that long ago, 10, 20 years ago, with the Achadia document and the Alexandria document that states that the ecclesiology of the first 1,000 years is basically the Orthodox position. It states almost verbatim, I'm going to butcher this quote because I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head, but it says something along the lines of, the Bishop of Rome did not exercise canonical jurisdiction in the churches of the East in the first millennium of the church. Boom. Period. That is not papal supremacy. That is not the modern Vatican I, dual swords, temporal and spiritual sword papacy that we have today.
Well, they just dismiss that and they say, well, that's a bunch of theologians. That's meaningless. But their best theologians said, here it is. It's all about power. It's always been about power.
And what's interesting about that, I'll say this, and then we'll play this a little further and see what else they say. But Leo actually recently came out and he referenced the Alexandria document and affirmed it. So the papal apologists that say, oh, well, these are just like research documents, these are just studies that they've done. Well, Leo's literally cited Alexandria and said, this is good. We like this. So I'm just saying.
I wonder if he was.
This creates.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I wonder if he was paid by somebody to say that. I don't.
He had a sponsorship. That was a sponsor plug. That's funny.
Sometimes on the family level, oftentimes these individuals have Catholic family members, and all of a sudden they're out of communion with their Catholic family members. This is also a problem too when there are godparents involved. So the standard practice is if a Catholic becomes Orthodox and they bring children with them, those children need new godparents who are Orthodox. They can no longer have the Catholic godparents. That's the standard practice. I personally haven't heard of many, if any, exceptions to this. So all of a sudden, Catholic godparents who may have been involved in the lives of the children, who took their role very seriously, are replaced. They're fired from being godparents. Now, that's a pretty serious personal wound, and I think a spiritual wound too. For those reasons, this isn't something you take lightly. There's one thing that for a person who's born and raised Orthodox to visit a Catholic church, they're welcome to receive the sacraments. There are brothers and sisters. But if somebody is Catholic and they've renounced Catholicism publicly, that's a whole other matter that's much more serious, much different, really.
Can I bring up a
Yeah.
point? Because Ben, you talked about this in the previous stream. You said, you gave up a great job. You gave up being like considered the number one YouTuber, podcaster, right? In the Protestant sphere. You gave up a lot. Well, yeah. The issue is they're trying to make it look like, oh, you poor Roman Catholics, you're gonna be hurt by this. Look at the terrible Orthodox, they're doing this. Well, the other thing is, look at it from the people that are coming into the Orthodox Church. They all lose friends, they lose relationships, they lose jobs, right? They are doing this at great cost. Not just, oh, you're not the godparents anymore. Invite them to the birthday party. Who cares?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's a pearl of great price, right? I mean, we gotta seek the truth. This was something that I think this is something that a lot of people do wrestle with. Coming from that world, especially in Protestantism, a lot of those guys have a lot of deep business roots in evangelicalism. If you become Orthodox, you don't get any of those speaking events. You become Orthodox, you don't get to go and talk at the Calvary Chapel and get your $5,000 paycheck speaking fee. You don't get that anymore. You don't get your pastor salary. You don't get your visiting pastor salary. You don't get your any of these things. These are all done. So it's a massive sacrifice to move into the Orthodox Church, especially for these people that have large public platforms and things like this. But I mean, look at the sacrifice that Eastern Catholics would have to make, to become Orthodox. I think it's important to highlight these stories so people know when they are making these sacrifices that they're not alone.
Yeah,
and
you're doing a great job, by the way, of interviewing people that are coming into the church, because that story has to be known, and our parishes have to be a place that is, we're not going to love bomb people, but we're going to sincerely welcome people to say, like, this is your family now, right? We want you to love the people in your former parish. We want you to honor what you came from. If it was a Christian tradition, sure, this is where you learned Christ and you as best you could. But the reality is now this is the fullness of the faith.
Yes, absolutely. I want to bring this up because it's relevant. Roasted Sweet Potato says, Cleve, thank you for your dedication to Jesus and his church. As a former hardcore Protestant becoming a catechumen, your journey let me know I'm not alone, even if my old Protestant community thinks I'm strange. Glory to God. And that's really what it's about. So I'll plug this because this will be coming up soon. I will be working on a documentary interviewing converts from Roman Catholicism to Orthodoxy. I will announce this pretty soon, and I'll make a little video, instructional video. If you're interested, if you are a former Roman Catholic that has converted to Orthodoxy relatively recently, I want to hear from you and I want to hear your testimony. It'll be exactly like the Journey to the Ark one that I did for former Protestants. So stay tuned for that.
To say that I think one of the concerns that at least I find is the breaking of you said, Father, the communion or the unity. I'll use the Slavonic term sobornost, the unity of mind and heart together. And if it existed, that unity existed between East and West in the first millennium of Christianity, the schism, which is often called the Great Schism, we mark it in the year 1054. Although that is a very simplistic view towards that, in order just to talk about it. But through all the second millennium, while there have been attempts to heal that union, that broken union, not working at every time, and smaller churches coming back into reunion with Rome. I can speak with you.
I want to mention this comment real quick. So I got Father Timothy Curran in the chat. So good to see you, Father. He says, Cleve, what if we converted 20 years ago? That's a good point. I think for the documentary, I might just not do the new convert requirement like I had the last one. I might just do any convert because I think it might be good to hear all perspectives. So let's stick with that. When I do this documentary, I'll do if you converted from Roman Catholicism to Orthodoxy, I want to hear from you. So that's good feedback. I like that. Thank you, Father.
Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church at the end of the 16th century doing that. There's other churches as well. And then officially in the 1960s with Pope Paul VI and Patriarch Athenagoras I, that the schism was actually officially forgiven. And that's a very beautiful open step to reconciliation, right? Especially those two fathers of the churches, right? Opening their arms to each other to embrace each other. And that's what happened. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that instead of being sister churches that are not in full union, but no longer in schism, and I know that it was the ecumenical patriarch that made this, and not all the patriarchs of all the Orthodox churches. I realize that, but still, there's to have these sorts of things that you're required to have new godchildren for parents, for sponsors for the children that come with parents, which is a strange idea because the sponsor is about baptism, not about transfer of administration or management and so forth, as you had said. But also some of our brothers and sisters in the Orthodox are requiring rebaptism.
Okay, so we're getting into a new subject, but I do want to address what he just said a moment ago. Do you have any thoughts on that, Father, about
yeah, so the one thing is he talked about, just previous to this, he said, there have been all these attempts at reunion. So here, you can name them, right? 1274, Second Council of Lyon, 1438, Council of Florence, 1596, Union of Brest, 1646, Union of Uzhhorod, 1724, the Melkites, because again and again and again, Rome is reaching out to say, come on. And it was always along this east-west border. That's really where a lot of this stuff happened, like Poland, Lithuania, Romania, Transcarpathia. They're just reaching over the border and they're trying to pull people in. And the question is, what is their motivation? What is their motivation for this? And I honestly think it's about control. It has to be about control. It can't simply be about, as he said, healing this schism. If you're healing the schism happened, for all intents and purposes, 1054. So if you turn the clock back, you're bringing them into a church, a Roman Catholic church in 2026 that looks entirely different than the church of 1053, right? Or the 900s or 800s. So the motivation for Rome to bring these churches in was always political. It was about control. It had to do with politics. It had to do with the royal family and the Habsburg and so forth. This was really what that was all about. And it was honestly never simply about, we miss you. We want to have one church, because ultimately it was always, now that you're back, we don't want you to have married priests anymore. Now that you're back, we want you to do the rosary. Now that you're back, you can't give communion to children. Now that you're back, you can't chrismate children. And they'll say, we're starting to reincorporate those things. Yeah, but for hundreds of years, you didn't do them. Right. And you talk about, you're just Orthodox in communion with Rome? Come on, you're not.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. It's a political move. It's a power move. It's a money move. Because you see with a lot of these different uniate groups, including the Ordinariate, the Anglicans. I mean, they allow them basically to venerate Protestants, kings as saints. It doesn't seem like it's like theology doesn't seem to play a very big role in whether or not they're going to allow somebody to unify with Rome, because they're allowing Nestorians in, they're allowing Monophysites in, they're allowing Anglicans that venerate Protestant kings in. This is just, it's a free for all in the Unia. It's crazy.
Have
So
to make compromises to
Mhm.
get the deal done, right?
Yeah.
It's if you will, it's the art of the deal. They'll say, well, we can be a little bit flexible on this. What is in it for the Eastern Catholics?
Mhm.
Nothing. What's in it for Rome is, hey, we got more people, we got more land, we have more churches. But for the Eastern Catholics, what's in it for them? I mean, historically, it was protection. It was recognition, right? You weren't going to be marginalized as you were Orthodox, let's say in Poland. If you were Orthodox in Poland, even like after World War II, you were marginalized.
Mm.
But if you were Catholic, oh, well, you're okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so let's get into this next part. 'Cause he's gonna say, I almost want to back it up just a little bit, because that statement he made just on its face is interesting, and I know we'll have some discussion about that. So
Baptism, not about transfer of administration or management and so forth, as you had said. But also some of our brothers and sisters in the Orthodox are requiring rebaptism.
Mhm.
And that hurts. That's I think, I mean, I'm talking about, I'm not talking about emotional hurt. I'm talking about a hurt, a woundedness of the heart,
Mhm.
of the church as the bride of Christ. And it seems that when we encounter these sorts of situations, and it's not just doxing, there's we could go on and on about other ways in which this happens, but it certainly starts to reveal that wound.
Yeah.
And certainly it's like, I had a TA in my graduate courses in theology, and she would talk about the heart, and we'd have a wound and everything, and that the demons love to come and go poke, 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 and all of our attention goes on that, on the woundedness, and off of our Lord, right? So I think these sorts of things, these are just some thoughts on what I think in part is happening when, and we can go into other reasons as well later, but certainly I think that's a key and core aspect of doxing, is that while someone may move from one of the Catholic churches into one of the Orthodox churches, that movement, instead of us working together as the bride of Christ, as separated sisters working together, continuing the mission to the world, it seems that perhaps we pick on each other, and we're.
if you don't mind, I'd like to chime in real quick, and then I know you have a lot of thoughts on this. The statement that he made here, if you were here from the last stream, does this sound very familiar? Because this is the same rhetoric that we
It's
hear
the
from
Protestants.
Yes, this is Protestant rhetoric. This is evangelical rhetoric. You're causing division by pointing out that we have these various heresies. You're causing division by saying that we are not a part of the church. You're causing division by not giving us your sacraments. You're causing division. Notice what he said earlier, because he said, if a Orthodox comes to us, we'll give them communion. We don't do that if they come to us. So it's not something this is a leniency on your side. You shouldn't be surprised that. Anyway, go ahead, Father. I know you have
Some of
some
this
thoughts on
is, I mean, let's face it, some of this is holdover from the bad days of the 1960s and 1970s, 1980s of the ecumenical movement, right? And there are people, especially of a certain age, that really gloried in that. They felt like that was peak whatever Christianity. Like, we're all going to be around the campfire and we're all going to hold hands and sing kumbaya, and we finally achieved this. And then, of course, it all collapsed and was found to be completely empty and devoid of anything but emotional nothingness, right? It's garbage. Ecumenism has proved itself to be entirely useless. So, what do you base unity on? You can't base unity on feelings, and this is what they're appealing to. You hurt my feelings because, this person was baptized in a uniate church. Well, here's the problem. And, I know, Ben, you understand, or I think you understand. I hope the listeners understand. This shift has been happening very quickly. And it's not due to just, one YouTuber or whatever. It's due to a growing understanding that the errors of the heterodox churches are so great. They are so much worse than anything that we could have ever thought. You can look at Saint Tikhon, Saint John Kachurov, where you have this this famous picture where they're standing and working with Episcopalians, right?
Yes.
Well, the Episcopalians of the early 1900s, late 1800s, and the Episcopalians today, you cannot compare them. The Episcopalians today, they're like, what are they doing? Do they believe in Christ? Do they believe in the resurrection? You don't know. Are you going to accept the baptism of some church that, and again, forgive me, that doubles down on giving blessings to people in homosexual unions? When you have now two popes who are going to double down on it, and this one pope says, well, it just means informal. Okay, what does that mean? Informal, like out on the church steps instead of at the altar? It's still a blessing. And the growing sense among the priests and the bishops, to be honest, is because my bishop Melchizedek has given us great latitude to say, if someone comes to you and has grave doubts about the Christian confession that they were in, no matter who it is, no matter what their baptism was, you have to, in a way, weigh that and honor that and see if it should be somehow remedied, right? And they're taking it as an affront. But the reality is, I would say, with respect to Father Michael Wynn and all of these gentlemen, to say, do you not see what you are united to? Do you not see the gay masses, the constant liberalism, the constant political machinations of your church? This is your church. It doesn't matter if you celebrate a different liturgy than they do. And so we see this and we say, we are going to distance ourselves from this as far as possible because you have deviated so far from the faith that we're not even sure your baptism has any validity at all, regardless of the form and the matter.
Yeah, I think it's an important discussion, especially what you mentioned about the Episcopal Church changing very rapidly. I mean, today you enter into any Episcopal church, they're going to have all sorts of flags you don't want to see all over the wall. Their theology is going to be all over the place. We play clips on the show all the time, especially with that particular church. You're getting a grab bag. Are they even Christian? Do they even believe that even in the general sense? Do they even believe in God? Sometimes you might not have somebody. You might have an atheist, priestess preaching at you in an Episcopal church. But one thing I do want to say about reception. you will have some differences in jurisdiction, and obviously the canons are applied by bishops. So keep that in mind, everybody. One thing, you can see this in the very early canons, even the First Ecumenical Council, Canon 6 of the First Ecumenical Council says, "Let the ancient customs in Egypt, Libya, Pentapolis prevail, that the Bishop of Alexandria have jurisdiction in all these, since like is customary for the Bishop of Rome," talking about each bishop applying canons in their own jurisdiction. This is not the papist model where, they're all kind of just going off of what one guy says, and this is uniform across the entire thing. Now, we actually have the ecclesiology of the first millennium church. So something to, yeah. So I think that's a beautiful, even proof for orthodoxy. All right. So let's see what else he has to say here.
We're distracted from Christ, the bridegroom, and distracted from our work together with him.
And I would just add to that, it's kind of the wound of love, right? I mean, because we love our Orthodox brothers and sisters. I have many friends among the clergy and the laity. I have many friends among the clergy and the laity who have been Catholic and are now Orthodox. I think some of it has to do with their disposition towards their former church, either forced or just sort of developed on their own. I have known some people that have not adopted a very sort of prosecutorial posture towards Catholicism. They made a choice in their conscience, and this is why they are where they are. But then you've got, as Father Deacon Anthony mentioned, you've got some require a denunciation, as though we are in heresy. Others require an entire rebaptism. And of course, that is a growing movement that many Orthodox are starting to wake up to, and some hierarchs are starting to condemn because of the absurdity of rebaptizing. And of course, they would say, well, it's oikonomia, and it's same thing with re-chrismating or chrismating, and all these things. I mean, let's call. I mean, it's sacrilege. Let's just say what it is. That kind of thing is to attempt to repeat a mystery like that cannot be repeated is sacrilege.
Go ahead.
I have to laugh here and say it is rich for Eastern Catholic priests to tell me as an Orthodox priest how it's sacrilege to apply, for instance, because obviously we chrismate Roman Catholics that come into the church. We chrismate them. They're not received by confession. They're received by chrismation, if not baptism. But I'm just saying,
yes,
he's objecting to that. The irony of Eastern Catholic priests and clergy complaining about the sacramental life of the Orthodox Church, when in fact they have altered, they have ignored the Orthodox tradition for hundreds of years in the way that we apply the sacraments, where they don't give the sacraments to children. They don't commune infants in many cases, right? They're just starting to come back to that. They, they don't have married priests. I mean, in other words, and I could even just go a little bit farther. And if you go to any Eastern Catholic YouTube channel and look at the services or look at their bulletin and what they do, all they ever do is liturgy, 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 liturgy. It's all they do, because it's exactly like the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church is just mass, 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 mass. Whereas in Orthodoxy, we have this rich life, and the Roman Catholic Church has it too, right? They have the whole daily office and the cycle of services, but they don't serve them in the parishes. Well, guess what? The Eastern Catholics don't do them either. It would be very rare for them to do them, nor do they do them in the traditional manner. For instance, during Lent, I would say it's probably still commonplace, I might be wrong, for Eastern Catholic churches to have divine liturgies during the weekdays of Lent, when in fact it's strictly forbidden. So they do these things, right? And then they say they're shocked that when somebody becomes Orthodox, we chrismate them or baptize them or whatever. Well, it's because you abandoned our sacramental practice and our liturgical practice and Latinized it to the point where often it's unrecognizable.
Mm-hmm.
So, this pretend that, well, I thought we were brothers and sisters. I thought we were so close and so forth. Well, I think you assumed that, but the reality is you're not as close as you thought you were to us.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I think it's also just a concession. They don't have the same faith as the early church, because it's very clear. If you were to read the canons, each bishop has the right to apply the canons. They have the right to apply them with acrovia or economia. This is clear even in the canons of the First Ecumenical Council. So for them to say, look, your bishops are doing this differently as some kind of an own is comical, because it just shows that they've completely renovated their ecclesiology. They've completely renovated the way that they even handle the sacraments to begin with. Notice the concession that they said at the beginning of this. We give Orthodox the Eucharist. What? And you're complaining about our sacramentology?
Right.
This is interesting.
And I think for them, it's a power play. I mean, I have to say it that way. I think it's a power play because they say, oh, well, we are the church. We are the Petrine see, and therefore we condescend to grant the sacraments to Orthodox Christians. But, I don't think it's done out of any kind of sincerity. It's again, it's a kind of, it's a way of asserting their magnanimous, their largeness, their largesse, and saying, look how great we are. Look, and I think it's, it's their understanding even of what the sacraments are, how, look at how they've lost the ascetical efforts, the ascetical life. Even in the Eastern Catholic Church, they have greatly reduced that. Yes. So we're not on the same page anymore.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's an excellent point. I have a lot that I could actually, I think I might as well go ahead and chime in on that. Some of the things that they lost that are so important, if they're going to assert that they are simply, Orthodox in communion with the Pope, or however they want to market themselves. I mean, just look at the prayer life of our monastics versus what is encouraged in the prayer life of the Roman Catholic Church. We don't pray with imaginative prayer. This is what is pushed time and time again in Roman Catholic prayer life. Imaginative prayer. Picture Christ on the cross. Picture the blood dripping from, picture the nails into his wrist. Look at all of the saints that the Roman Catholic Church has canonized post-Vatican II. Every single one of them. I've gone through a list of them on this show. Severe prelest. I mean, delusions of grandeur. You have Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, who is doing things I don't even want to mention on the stream with a priest present. Very graphic things. So there's massive differences even in our spiritual lives. So
absolutely. And as a Eastern Catholic, you have to accept that. You can opt out of it and say, well, that's not our tradition. But you can also say, oh, I'm going to incorporate that in my prayer life or whatever you want to say. And that's the problem, is there are no guardrails.
Yes.
In the whole scheme of Catholicism, when now East and West are together to say, like, oh, well, take a little Thomism, take a little bit of the medieval saints, take a little bit of Teresa Avila, take a little bit of, whatever it is. And how can you maintain a truly Orthodox ascetical life if you're incorporating, because you have to accept all of these things as legitimate.
Yes.
You have to.
Excellent point, Father.
religious. And I think it points to the fracturing within Orthodoxy of not having that common approach even to the reception of converts. This has been pointed out, I think, in some ecumenical dialogues, on the reception of Catholic members into Orthodox churches. It's even been pointed out, or even reordination. For goodness sake, I mean, you just at some point you're just like, wow, that's it. It shows how far apart we are, and that I think wounds. It is wounding in itself. But at the same time, you just what an individual or a family might even be forced to do. I think it's I think that's part of the pain that we sometimes feel.
Very, very good. Thank you, Father Daniel. And maybe we can circle back a little bit later to talk about the absolute scandal that it is in some, and thankfully it's a minority of Orthodox jurisdictions who require rebaptism.
Yeah.
Because I mean, and Father Deacon Anthony, you as a theologian who teaches at a university, the history of. I mean, the church grappled with this question, in the second, third century about what do we do with heretics? Do we rebaptize them? Right, and this is a question that was settled, and
he's implying that we're Donatists. That's what he's saying. He's saying if you rebaptize, you're Donatist. Lord of mercy.
Well, yeah, I mean, the problem is, again, he's making the assumption that we are operating with them as part of the church.
Correct.
So even if you look at, let's say, the Council in Trullo, there's a lot behind the scenes. Like if you reduce this, and I don't want to go too far into the whole sort of rebaptism thing and so forth. If you reduce this to form, right? You got to have a triple water action and it has to be in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, right? Okay, but there's more to it than that. What about a priest who allows his nun administrator to do the baptisms, right? Mm-hmm. Or the deacons or whatever, because they let their deacons do baptisms, they do weddings and whatever. Like how, there's a lot to unpack there.
Well, even the concept with the Eucharist, they have extraordinary Eucharistic ministers. So you'll have, in the Novus Ordo, you'll have women giving you the Eucharist, the lay people, the laity. So this is wild. The point that I was going to make with this, I said his term rebaptism. If it's judged that they didn't receive baptism and they're getting baptized for the first time. It's not a rebaptism, first off. But one thing that I want to say is he said a statement. He said, well, the bishops doing this in different ways is a large gap from what we have. I would agree that's a large gap from what you have, because you're completely different than the church the first 1,000 years. One example of this was somebody asked me a question completely unrelated to the sacraments, but somebody asked me a question. They said, hey, is there like one catechism for like all the Orthodox churches? And I was like, no, because we actually operate like the early church did. There's several. And I was showing him, I was like, look, just Google early church catechisms. You're going to find St. Cyril's catechism. You're going to find St. Clement's catechism. You're going to find, so on, like all of these different catechisms. So this is yet another way that the modern Roman Catholic Church has innovated. They've completely changed. So rather than letting the bishops do their thing, as I mean, in my opinion, this might be a strong statement, as Christ intended, this structure has completely changed. So this is yet another example.
I've had the exact same thing said to me. Well, look how nice it is. The Roman Catholic Church has one catechism, right? And then when the Pope comes in, he changes something, right? He changed it on capital punishment. Mm-hmm. That's what Francis did. So what good is your one catechism when a pope can come in and just change something? They prove time and time again that the look, what they I don't want to say pretend themselves to be, but what they fancy themselves to be, when you dig into it a little bit, it's not what it looks like from the outside at all.
Mhm. Completely agree. All right, let's get into these super chats, and then I do have a 2-hour hard stop here. So let's wrap up here. This has been an excellent show. I really appreciate you coming on, Father Tom. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thanks for
And
inviting me. Appreciate it.
a-
You've had a
absolutely.
long day.
Huh? Say that again.
You've had a long day.
I did, yes. But it was a lot of fun. I like doing this, If I've got a week that's not too busy, sometimes I throw in some extra streams,
It was good.
It's fun. But I think this one will be helpful for people. This isn't necessarily a subject that gets discussed a lot, the uniates and things like this. So I really appreciate you coming on and lending your expertise here, Father Tom.
Yeah, I and again, I don't hate Catholics. I don't hate Eastern Catholics, but sometimes you have to say hard truths and you have to tell it like it is. And I would really encourage Eastern Catholics that are feeling like something is missing to investigate the Orthodox Church and say, if you feel like you are being marginalized in the Catholic Church, the reality is you are, and you will get the real thing in the Orthodox Church.
Absolutely. Excellent words. Thank you for the $10. Father Blessing, good evening, Cleve. Not directly related to the Easterns, but did you see the statement by the Vatican's threat to excommunicate the SSPX if they ordained their own bishops this July 2? Yes, I did. I did see that. I don't want to speculate on what I think is going to happen, but it's further evidence of them persecuting trads in their own community. If you're a traditional Catholic, if you're attending a TLM church, if you're attending the SSPX, and you're really, really frustrated with the situation there, you're gonna have one or two options. If they excommunicate the SSPX, where are you going? Are you gonna stay there and be excommunicated? Or, the other obvious option is become Orthodox, right? This is the correct option. We have the historic liturgy. We have the historic theology. We have the same ecclesiology of the early church. I get trads all the time at my parish that I talk to at coffee hour that are brand new. I get like a new one almost every week, it seems like, that are leaving from traditional Roman Catholicism. So you're not alone. And after we do this documentary, you'll see how many people have made the same decision. So maybe that'll help some of you make the same decision. Patristic Clips, uniates are the OG grifters. Union of Brest was for political reasons. Orthodox lost their churches and couldn't bury their dead. As UA, no respect for them. Well, still pray for them. That would be a good thing to do. Fantastic episode with Father Tom Soroka. Keep it up. God bless.
God bless you.
Father Timothy, in the Middle East, the ECs will start a school near an Orthodox village and tell them tuition is free if they convert. Wow.
Yep.
That's like you see the evangelical flyers. I don't know if you ever saw these, Father Tom, but it was like free Xbox with baptism.
And the Jesuits are always behind something like that too. So, yeah, and they'll start an Eastern Catholic school, although I'm sure Father Timothy knows that in the 18th and 19th century, even though they had union with the Melkites and so forth, they still started Latin Catholic churches, Roman Catholic churches in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane.
Yep. And it never has anything to do with theology. Like you were saying earlier, with them allowing Orthodox to receive communion in their churches, this is just one way. Well, they'll come in the door. Maybe we can scrape a couple of them off. That seems to be the strategy. It's like, oh, well, you moved to a new town. Well, you know what? There's an Orthodox church an hour away there, but there's an Eastern Catholic church 15 minutes,
Right.
That's the strategy. Philly, are you okay? Philly, are you okay? Are you okay, Philly? That's funny. You've been beat by a smooth ortho, bro. Ow. That's funny. I feel in the next 1 to 2 years, there's going to be a lot of prompt to RC converts who are going to becoming Orthodox. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
100%.
I think they will, they will experience in the Roman Catholic churches. Maybe they have a good parish or a good priest or whatever, but eventually that Vatican II vibe is just going to make its way into the parish, and they'll see.
Yes, absolutely. I get a lot of
Buyer's remorse, Alex said, right?
yes, there's a lot of buyer's remorse. I get a lot of people who I spoke to one last week that was OCIA. It's no longer RCIA, by the way. I'm correct on that. It's OCIA now. Jay was trying to say, no, it's RCIA. No, they changed it. It's OCIA. I've had Roman Catholic OCIA members just this last week reach out to me. We have some conversations about some of this stuff, and now they're okay. I'm inquiring Orthodox. I'm going to go try to become a catechumen because it's nuts. I had one guy send me a picture from his Roman Catholic Novus Ordo church, and they've got a Pachamama statue in the loft, and they've got African Jesus and a Pachamama in their church. And there was one guy that sent me a picture. They're celebrating Hindu holidays. It was like, come for our like Hindu holiday mass. It's wild. I mean, Lord have mercy on this is honestly, it kind of upsets me because, and like Father Tom, like you said, I don't hate Catholics at all. I feel a lot of compassion and empathy for them, because imagine if I were in my position, the amount that I had to sacrifice to journey into the Orthodox Church. Imagine if I had sacrificed all of that to join Roman Catholicism, and I met with this Novus Ordo madness. You've left all of your friends. Hopefully you didn't burn all the bridges, but you know what I'm saying. All the people you see at your local Protestant church on Sunday. You've convinced your wife finally to come. There's been some strife or whatever the case may be. There was arguing there. You finally end up Roman Catholic, and then you've got gay mass. You've got Pachamama statue. You've got clown mass. You've got dead whale mass like they had in Germany. You've got Harry Potter mass. And you were thinking this is the solution for all of the things that were wrong in your Protestant, evangelical, whatever fill in the blank church. And you just sacrificed everything, and you've entered clown world. This is heartbreaking to me. So I say this with empathy, not out of condemnation for the people that are doing this. I don't want to see anybody waste their time. It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. The Roman Catholic Church obviously is enormous, and they may feel safe in their parish. They may feel at home, but once they start to branch out, it's going to get weird. It's bound to get weird. And they're going to find, I was looking online. I know there's a Roman Catholic church somewhere. I can't find it, that has a stained glass window of Buddha.
Yes. I have a picture of it. Hold on.
Yeah. And like, how, in what universe can that happen? Like, how does a Roman Catholic church justify having a stained glass window of Buddha? And this is like, somebody say, oh, well, that's just a one-off. Now, in what context could that ever happen in an Orthodox church? Would that ever happen? I don't know if you know the story about, and I know Russia's not on everybody's, there it is. Yeah. St. Ambrose in Buffalo, New York. It's ridiculous. And there's Shiva. There's a story about, I think it was about 20, 30 years ago. There was a church in Russia. It's about 20 years ago. And I guess some aberrant priest performed a homosexual wedding. So you had a Orthodox wedding service with two men. And within a week, that church was bulldozed. That's a true story. That's how we deal.
Yes.
Whereas, you have a stained glass window Buddha? Sure. Have everybody look at that. Or the whale in Germany. Did you see the whale during Mass in Germany? Like, this is the Roman Catholic Church. And if you're Eastern Catholic, that's your church.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Even Eric Ibarra chimed in on this one. He was like, I'm so glad I go to my parish and not whatever this is.
Yeah, sorry. Doesn't work that way. That's your church.
Yes,
Sorry.
exactly. Exactly. This is what's going on here. And then if you were, this is a cropped version, but if you were to look just above this, they have the Trinity blessing with the blessing, they're giving blessings to what's below. And yes, if you go to their website or you go to their video galleries or photo galleries, which they've made private since this went public, by the way, they made them completely private. But if you were to look at it before, this is a tribute to Vatican II. This is a ecumenism tribute. So that was the intent. Don't mention the Livonian Crusades, Saint Jehoshaphat arresting priests in the middle of the liturgies, and Pope Eugene refusing to give financial support to legates to them. Rome had good intentions. Lord of mercy. Since Byzantine Catholics are papists, does it mean they forfeit essence energy distinction and thus have never faith they can truly experience God?
Well, I mean, again, the problem is that they speak out of both sides of their mouths, right? So they accept supposedly the teachings of St. Gregory Palamas. They have the second Sunday of Lent in their calendar, but what does it mean if your Roman Catholic brothers speak against it? I can't explain it.
Yep, it's a theological hodgepodge. Basically, whatever you want to believe, it seems like in some of these uniate groups. You have to
choose your own theological adventure.
Exactly. You want to be Monophysite Catholic, we got you. You want to be Nestorian Catholic, we got you. You want to be, I mean, what's next? Arian? We're gonna have the Jehovah's Witness uniates.
Jewish.
Yeah, Lord of mercy. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Father Tom. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Is there anything that you want to promote that you have coming up that you'd like to let the audience know about?
Every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, just jump on. And we're always talking about something. So, Ancient Faith Today Live, it's good to have you. I know you guys have popped in every so often. And I think what I'm really happy about, and I see Alex in the chat and so forth, I want to honestly say this. I love you guys. I really do. I know that, things have been said years and years and years ago, but we have to, as Orthodox Christians, work together. If, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And let's all work together, support one another, love one another. And I'm talking about the Orthodox, right? We have to do that. This is not it doesn't help us to denounce one another or to undermine one another. Let's work together, love one another. The fields are white for harvest, and you guys are doing a great job in growing a lot of beautiful crops for the Lord.
Well, thank you, Father Tom. I appreciate that. It is the season for peacemaking, the season for unity and orthodoxy. Very beautiful, beautiful words there. I have a couple more super chats that just got sent in. I had a Protestant scold me for not talking in tongues in private when I pray. Lord have mercy. Well, what's interesting? I have a story about that. I know we got to wrap up here, but this is a funny story. So when I was a Protestant pastor, we had a gentleman come in to our church from the Catholic Charismatic movement. And I don't know if you know about them, but they speak in tongues.
Started in Pittsburgh.
They do the shades.
University, Duquesne University.
They do all of the things Pentecostals do. So you would come into the church, and I used to run the prayer meeting. So we were not charismatic at all. But he came in and he was trying to do the Shabba Baba in the prayer meeting. I'm like, I thought you were Catholic. Like, this was a surprise. So that took me by surprise. I had to have a nice conversation with him, off to the side later. But That was a shock to me. And then looking into it more, we've played videos like the Catholic charismatic movement in Africa is absolutely wild. I mean, they're getting slain in the spirit, all this stuff. They're like shaking on the floor. There was one where they had a Eucharistic adoration. They're elevating the host, and all these women are falling down on the floor, shaking and having seizures on the floor in front of the the priest doing the adoration. Is absolutely wild.
Can I tell you a real quick story?
Yes.
I know you got to go. So if you remember or you've heard, this is a long time ago in the 1980s, there was the Evangelical Orthodox Church. I don't know if you've ever heard
Yes.
about them,
Mhm.
Peter Gilchrist and all of this.
Yes.
Well, there was one church in Indianapolis that actually did not come in with that original group. And my wife is from Kentucky. I lived down there for 14 years, worked at St. Michael's in Louisville for a long time, directed the choir and so forth. And we used to go up to Indianapolis. And one of those evangelical Orthodox churches, which wasn't Orthodox at that time, was in Indianapolis. So I decided I was going to go to liturgy there one day and just see what was going on. So I go to the liturgy and, we have the great litany, and then we have the first antiphon and the second antiphon and the third antiphon. So the deacon comes out like they're doing the divine liturgy of John Chrysostom, right? But the deacon comes out at the third antiphon and he puts the gospel on like an analoi, and then he raises his hands and everybody in the congregation starts raising their hands and they all start speaking in tongues. And it was like, what is going on here? And it was like, they are not ready to become Orthodox yet. They were they were still just trying to get into it and try to understand it, but they had to be extricated from this, emotionalism and so forth. And I will never forget that. And I thought, wow, they have a way to go. And they
Yes.
eventually did become Orthodox, but it was really weird. Third antiphon was in tongues. So.
Wow. That's wild. I want to play this clip real quick just to show people the Catholic charismatic movement, some of the things that happen. This isn't the clip I was thinking of, but this pops up. It does the job. So these are nuns getting slain in the spirit. Lord have mercy. So this is a Catholic charismatic movement. You saw her did the little spirit blast, and then she falls to the ground and does the shakes. Lord have mercy.
It's all
Yeah, not much to say about that other than Lord have mercy. The Mamba, last super chat here, and then we'll wrap up. Does Father have any published books or articles to read? He wants to check out some of your stuff.
Not yet. It's coming, God willing.
Stay tuned.
Right. Stay
There
tuned.
you go. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Everybody in the chat, make sure to check out Father Tom Soroka's show on Ancient Faith. He does a lot of different reviews of different videos, response videos, these types of things, very similar to some of the things I do on this show. Check it out. Very entertaining, very insightful. And thank you again, Father Tom, for coming on. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you so much. Keep up the great work. Christ is risen.
Truly, he is risen.
Thanks to everybody listening also.
Until next time.